One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I feel like it is my duty and responsibility to brag on today's guest today, because Monique Simmons, I am so grateful that she came into our community exactly when she did. And I am just so happy that we had today's conversation. So we are continuing our coaching call series, and this was just so fun. So Monique and I don't know originally where we crossed paths, and I'm not sure that we really dive into that in this episode, but she is someone, whenever I was doing my weekly live streams every single Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central, she was there. It was this weird thing where, like, if she didn't show up, I was immediately worried, like, oh, I hope Monique is okay. I hope that she's fine, because she always had her smiling face on, like, her Facebook profile picture was always there whenever I was doing my live streams. And to be really honest, she carried me through a lot of these sessions whenever it was just her and I was like, hey, if anybody has any questions, because yes, I do live streams, and yes, maybe one person shows up, and I'm so grateful for all those times that Monique showed up and we got to chat and hang out together in our live sessions. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I am so excited to be able to give back to Monique and coach her through her podcast. She has the Demo with Mo podcast. We're going to talk about that. But I'm so grateful. So shout out, Monique. I'm so happy that we finally got to chat, and I hope that everybody enjoys this conversation. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited for today's guest. Welcome to the show, Monique. I'm so happy that you're here.
Hello, Krystal. I'm so excited to be here.
So this is really fun because Monique is one of our regulars on our weekly live streams. And this is how as soon as I got giddy when I saw her face pop up, I'm like, oh my gosh, we finally get to meet in person. I'm so excited about this.
Look, Krystal, I felt the exact same way as you, literally, because I'm like, I officially get to meet her face to face. Well, via the internet.
Exactly. Well, we have like a little bit of a different story too, with you and I having interacted so many times on the live streams. I know a little bit more about what you do than some of the other coaching clients that we've had. So, but I want to dive in right here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, the audience that you serve, and a little bit about the content that you're creating?
Yes, definitely. I am Monique Simmons. I am the host of Demo with Mo, which is an acronym. People always ask me about my name, but a best friend of mine, she actually came up with this name for me. She asked me what was the audience that I wanted to reach, and we came up with this name. So Demo is an acronym for Dating, Engaged, and Married Objectives. And that's my audience. My audience is in my name. I am reaching those who are in relationships, whether they be dating, engaged, or married, and just to help give them practical tools on doing relationships and doing relationships well.
I love this. And we've had so many like back and forth conversations on the live streams where I'm like, oh, by the way, I know Monique's in the audience. So here's the tip that you can use. And so this is totally, I didn't mean for this to turn into a commercial for our live streams, but you should come hang out with us because we have a lot of fun on our Taco Tuesday calls.
Yes, so much fun. And I always love to see fun. Rita.
Yes, Rita. Oh, y'all, you have to come. I'm not even going to tell you what Rita is. You just got to come see. You got to come and meet Rita because she's the life of the party of the Taco Tuesday calls. But I want to get into the action items that we are talking about today because I want to help you with your podcast and with your content. So tell me a little bit about, I have, our questionnaire that we pulled up about what we filled out before we started talking. And one of the ways that you would love some coaching is ways to market your podcast and some website and SEO. So tell me a little bit about either where you're stuck or where you could use some help.
The first one, to better market my podcast and my content, I'm not as big on social media as a lot of people, so I would love some new ideas and ways to kind of change it up or switch it up because I am not a one-way type of doing thing person. I am open to new things that work, and I don't mind, diving out and trying things. And the other one is the website and the SEO because, as you mentioned earlier, I do the live streams with you every week, and you always talk about it. And I know that it makes a big difference. So I kind of want to make sure that I'm on the right track with it, or maybe if I need to adjust some things.
Okay. Yeah, these are great. So the first one, when it comes to social media, I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can do social media. Like you said, like there's not one way that you approach it that's the quote right way to do it, even though there's experts out there that will say you have to do it this way in order to be successful, or you have to do it this way. I think that it really all comes down to pulling out the pieces of your personality that your audience is going to resonate with most. And so for you specifically, I know that you kind of hit on all these different, I guess, facets of your audience, because it's not like it's necessarily all going to be the same person, because somebody's going to be, dating, somebody's going to be engaged, somebody's going to be married, and those are very distinctive members of your audience. But what I would do to make it a little bit easier on yourself is maybe come up with themes. So for Mondays, we're going to talk to those of you in the dating world. And Wednesdays, we're going to talk to those of you that are recently engaged and you're planning your wedding and you're in this honeymoon phase of your relationship. And then on Fridays, we'll cover those of you that have been married for a while and ways to, whether you have an expert on the show or you have someone, just making it easier for you, especially for people that feel like social media is just really weighs them down, or it slows them down, or it's overwhelming, I always try to think of ways that you can make it fun. And because I do already know that you're creating content on a regular basis now, I would recommend trying some things out, whether it's sharing audio clips or putting quotes up from your episodes, or, is any of this really resonating with you, or is anything else standing out from what I just said?
No, all of this definitely resonates with me. And I'm loving the theme days. Like I have not tried that because it is a little, I don't want to use difficult, but because my audience is so big, I don't ever want to seem like because I'm married, I'm focusing on talking to people that are married, or I'm just focusing on those that are dating. I kind of want those people in their area to feel important, as if I'm talking specifically to them on this day, and maybe, as you said, hitting the others on the other days.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a way that you can kind of it's also the progression, right? It's like you're in these seasons of life. It's maybe one is dating, two is engaged, three is married, and the way that if I were a consumer of your content looking at what you do, I'm like, okay, well, I know that maybe Monday's topic might not be for me, but I'm going to make sure and check out what Monique has on Fridays, because I know that's always for the married couples. And maybe it's relationship tips, maybe it's, something that's actionable. And what's cool about what you do is there's always seasons of the year that you could follow. I mean, obviously we just had Valentine's Day, and everybody has their own emotions about what Valentine's Day, whether it's fun, it's sexy, it's lovable, there's so many different ways that you can approach it. So I would almost look at the things that are coming up on the calendar. Like for me personally, when we're recording this, I'm already thinking about, we have spring break coming up, and then we have Mother's Day, and we have summertime. So if you could even throw in some of those themes of, okay, here's how you can celebrate your spouse if she's a mother on Mother's Day, and here's how you can support, your partner if y'all are dating or you're freshly dating and it's Mother's Day. So just kind of tying in things that are already naturally happening that people would want to be thinking about and they're consuming already on social, and trying to tie it all back to your podcast. Now, this is where people usually get overwhelmed, like, oh, so I got to do all this planning and all these things. And I'm like, no, it doesn't mean you have to create a podcast episode just for Mother's Day, but you can say, hey, here are some tips that you put out on social. And then you tease them and say, and if you want to know more, come listen to the podcast. It's where we really get into more of the advice and the relationship information.
Okay, I love this because Christmas, I did this for Christmas and Valentine's Day, but on my social platform, I did a list for women of gifts to get the man in their lives, and then I did a list for men to get gifts for the women in their lives, and they loved it. The guests loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. All the guys are going to love it. Mother's Day comes around. They're all scrambling. Like, what do I do? What am I supposed to? That would be so helpful. And I need this too. I'm a terrible gift giver. I'm just going to throw that out there. So if you have ideas for me to give my husband for Father's Day, I would absolutely appreciate it. There's my little selfish plug. Yeah.
I got you. I love giving gifts. So I got you.
Awesome. Well, I want to go back to your website and your SEO. So are there any specific questions that you have? Because you've already mentioned, it's important. I would imagine one of the challenges you would run into, like you said, is the different pieces of the puzzle when it comes to your audience, the segmentation of your audience. But the first thing that really comes to mind to think about, not dating, engaged, or married, but you talk about relationships. That's your overarching umbrella topic, if you want to call it that. So I would almost think about, how can I tie in the word relationships? Because you can say dating relationships, engaged relationships, married relationships. And that's really the key word that comes to mind when I think about your topic and what it is that you do. What do you think about that? Does that kind of resonate?
It does, yes, 100%. So when you say you like because this is probably where I'm not sure on the keyword, would this be in my title when we're talking about the keywords? Is this the episode title?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So when I say keywords, I want you to think about the topic. So what I will typically do when I'm doing this keyword planning, I'll walk you through my process. I have my spreadsheet, which I'm sure you've seen or you've watched a YouTube video.
Yes.
I have just a Google sheet of all these ideas. So when I think of a new idea, I put it in there, but it's not usually the end title that I have. I will put the topic in there. I'll create the podcast episode or the YouTube video or whatever it is about that topic. And then when I'm going to schedule and publish it, that's when I ask, what would someone that needs to hear this be asking? What would they be typing into Google? What would they type into YouTube? Or what would they ask me as a question where I could say, oh, here's a podcast episode for you. Go listen to it. And that's when I think about the keywords. And so I think in the title is really important, the podcast title, as well as in the description, a few different ways. And by I say a few different ways, it's going to be depending on whether it's for dating, engaged, married, like you would probably call it out pretty specifically in there. But yeah, that's really what I'm thinking about.
Okay. I got you. I understand now.
Okay, awesome. And then it says on here, one of your top goals for 2022 is doing more interviews and guesting on other podcasts. So do you have any questions around that? Is there anything specifically that you're excited, nervous about?
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
First off, I just want to say how excited I am to be doing this with you today because this is my first time on someone else's podcast. I love podcasting, but I have not put myself out there to be guests on others' podcasts. So maybe I want to know, like, how do you go about putting yourself out there to be on someone else's podcast?
This is such a great question. And I'm so excited to, like, I will go down in the history books as the first interview that you've done. I'm so excited about that. But, okay, so what I typically do when I think about whose podcast can I be on? Like, what are the types of shows I want to do? I start reaching out in my immediate network, and that's what you've done here. You saw an opportunity to be able to come on the show, and I'm so glad that you did. And now you've ripped off the Band-Aid and you can say, okay, I've been on a show. So what I would do is if you were going to like reach out into your network and say, who do I know that has a podcast or a live stream, or I could do an Instagram live with that is related to my topic. So I'm imagining you, especially with the married and engaged, I would imagine people that are in the relationship stage of, you know, that's what they talk about in their topics. Like for some reason, mom podcasts are coming to me too. I think it's because I have a few people in my network that do things related to parenting and motherhood. So I would imagine that while it's not the exact same topic, it correlates the same. And so start reaching out in your network and say, hey, does anybody have a podcast? And if you're like, I don't know anybody that does, reach out in our group. I want you to reach out in our Facebook group. I know that you're in there, and that's a great place to connect with other creators and say, hey, I'm looking to guest on some shows. And you want to have more or less like your elevator pitch of what you talk about, what you offer. That way people can know, oh, this would be really aligned with my show and my audience. But I can tell you the thing that will get a no from me very quickly is if someone asks to come on my show and there's no value to my audience. I don't care about the value to me. It's not about me. Yeah. It's about my audience. And will this help them? So if you go to a podcast host and you say, I know on your podcast, you talk about women and parenting and relationships, and I would love to bring to your audience some tips that I have on whenever they're first engaged or they're first married or they're still in the dating world. And this is what I do on my show. And you could even link to this podcast once it's live. You can say, and I've been a guest on someone else's podcast, and this is what it sounds like. So does that help?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, before we go today, do you have any other questions?
No questions. And I feel like I don't have a lot of questions. It's because you help me every week. Like legit. Like this is why I'm so excited, because I'm on your live stream every week. You're very down to earth and relatable. And you give so much practical application. Like you walk us through step by step how to do everything. So you've helped me so much even before today. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you and your platform and how much you're making a difference in podcasters like me lives. Like you help me so much. Like my friends always joke and say that I'm way ahead of a lot of people who have podcasts, who've been podcasting longer than me. But I'm like, it's because I had the resources there. Like you talk about everything, anything that I wanted to know about, you have it. You have the information available. So thank you.
You just made my day. Thank you so much, Monique. That was such a sweet message. And I so appreciate you being a part of our community. And I always know, I'm like, even if I end up doing a live and I'm the only one there, I'm like, oh, Monique's going to show up at least and hang out with me. And we can talk about, and you get all the attention because you show up and you talk with me. So I'm like, oh, Monique, what questions do you have? Let's talk about your podcast and your problems today, because I want to help you become a better podcaster. So thank you so much for being a part of this community. For everybody that wants to learn more about you and your show and ways that they can connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
You can find me on my website at www.demowithmo.com, and you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at demowithmo.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Krystal, for having me.
So fun. So fun. Like, it's just the thing that I have the biggest smile on my face right now, because these coaching sessions and connecting with people that are in our community, like it's one thing to interview someone as a guest of the show and you think, well, maybe they've probably listened to one episode, or maybe, they kind of have an idea of what our community is about and how they can really make an impact and add value. But these coaching sessions, like the questions that are asked, I just feel like y'all knock it out of the park every single time. And I just once again want to say thank you so much to everybody that has participated in these coaching calls, because they were eye-opening for me on some of the things that our community members are struggling with. But also, I hope, I really do, in you listening to these as just an active listener of the show, as well as if you're listening to these and you participated in the coaching calls, I hope that you see that you're not alone in these questions that keep coming up. I hope that you see a version of yourself. Maybe it's even from 6 months ago or 2 years ago, and you can relate to the stories that are being shared here today, because the through line of all of this is that We all have similar journeys. We just may experience them different. We go through imposter syndrome. We go through the struggle of, do I do show notes that are really fancy? Do I do super easy show notes when it comes to my podcast? Or who is my audience? Who am I really speaking to? How can I market to them? All of these questions have come up time and time again in these coaching calls. And I just want everybody to know that you're on the right path. You're on the right journey, just showing up here, listening to the show on a regular basis, connecting with people. This is another point I wanted to make because Monique, like I said in the beginning, is someone that was always an active participant in our Facebook group. So if you're looking for a community of people, you're like, I would love to have, conversations with people. Come join us in the Facebook group. Like, it's super easy to join, and there are over 1,000 people. I think we have 1,100 people in there now. And we have content creators, podcasters, YouTubers, people asking questions about social media, people asking questions about email lists, people saying, hey, here's my podcast artwork. I don't know, which one do you like? Like there's a place of community being built there. And I am so proud of the way that everyone interacts. It's a nice community. I know you shouldn't have to say that, but you know what I'm talking about. If you've been a part of other really aggressive, salesy communities where that's all it is, just spam all throughout. I'm really proud to say that our community isn't like that. I hope that everyone that participates in there feels like an active member that can contribute, that can help other people, or you can just ask questions without feeling dumb about it. That's another thing that we harp on really strongly in the group. There are no dumb questions. I've asked them all, y'all. I've asked all the dumb questions for you already, which is why I'm sitting here today telling you what I've learned from all the questions that I've asked. So that is my plug for you joining us in our amazing Facebook group. So shout out to all the members, shout out to all the coaching call participants. Y'all are fantastic, and this just makes my heart so happy. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you are subscribed or following the podcast wherever you are listening to this. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I hope that you reach out if you have any questions. Like I said, join the Facebook group. It's a great place to ask questions and have them answered. And make sure, this is something I always tell people to do, and it's so fun when I see it. Take a screenshot wherever you're listening to this and tag me on Instagram. I'm at Krystal Profit TX, and I would love to see what your number one takeaway was from this call today, our coaching call series, or any of the podcasts that you've been listening to. I would love your feedback and hear what you thought about the show. But as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.